I hadn't stepped foot inside that house in 24 years, and I swore I never would again. But when the lawyer called to tell me our mother was gone, and the deed now carried both our names, I didn't have a choice. My name is Andrew Mercer. I'm 46 years old, the eldest of two brothers who haven't spoken in almost a decade. My younger brother's name is Caleb. He was always the wild one, reckless, magnetic, the kind of boy everyone either wanted to save or follow off a cliff. I spent most of my childhood pulling him back from the edge. But one summer changed everything. And now, walking through the warped front door of our childhood home with the scent of mold and dust pulling memories from the walls, I felt that same old sense of dread settle behind my ribs. Caleb was already inside, of course. He always beat me to the punch. He stood in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, cigarette dangling from his lips, flipping through mail like we still lived there. "Look what the cat dragged in," he said without looking up. "Thought you'd send a lawyer instead." "Don't tempt me," I muttered. "Where's the key?" He pulled it from the old ceramic cookie jar Mom never let us touch. I half expected her to appear behind him with a wooden spoon. "You look like hell," I said. He smirked. "I live like it, too." The lawyer had said the will was simple. The house, what was left of the estate, and a letter, hand-sealed by our mother, addressed to both of us. "What's in it?" I asked as Caleb pulled the envelope from his back pocket. "Haven't opened it," he said. "Didn't feel right without you." That was the first lie. Caleb had never waited on me for anything. He handed it over. The paper crackled as I broke the seal. The letter was short. Her handwriting was still neat, still sharp. "To my sons, Andrew and Caleb, there are things I never said. Things you were too young to understand and I was too afraid to face. What happened that summer was not an accident. It wasn't the wind. And it wasn't the storm. If you want answers, they're buried where the fire started, beneath the old stone floor. The key is in your father's violin case. Do what you will with the truth. I won't be here to stop you, or protect you from it." Caleb leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "The fire," he said. "She's talking about the basement." "Yeah," I said. "The one you were never supposed to be in." His eyes flicked up, sharper now. "We were kids." "You were 14, I snapped. "You knew what you were doing." "You think I started it?" "I think I stopped asking what you were capable of a long time ago." The violin case was still in the living room closet, wrapped in a plastic bag. Dad had played every Sunday before church, right up until the day he died, in that very fire. Caleb found the key taped inside the bow compartment. We went down to the basement together, the air thick with mildew and rot. The stone floor had cracked over the years. We pried it open with a crowbar and found a metal safe, rusted but intact. It took an hour to get it open. Inside were files, photos, burned pages that had been preserved in vacuum-sealed plastic, newspaper clippings, police reports, and one full confession. Our mother had written it, dated 2 years after the fire. "Your father didn't die in the fire by accident. I lied to protect one of you, and that lie became your inheritance." I turned to Caleb, my breath caught halfway in my chest. "What is this?" He said nothing, just stared at the files like he'd seen them before. I knew then he had opened the letter. He'd read it already. He'd known all along. "You were supposed to be in the barn that night," I whispered. "But you weren't." "Because I was in the house," he said. "With him." "Why?" "Because he found out," Caleb said, eyes dark and cold. "Found out what he did to her. To me. What he'd been doing for years." My legs nearly gave out. "You killed him." "No," he said. "I watched him die. The fire was an accident. But I let it burn. Because she needed it to be over. And so did I. The confession was written for us. But really, it was written for me. Because I was the one who buried that night behind college degrees, clean suits, and polite silence. Caleb had lived in the wreckage. I had walked away. And now, with the truth pulled into the light like a corpse exhumed, we had to decide what to do with it. "We tell no one," I said. "We burn this." Again, Caleb nodded. But something in his eyes didn't agree. And I knew, deep down, that this wasn't over. Because secrets don't die in the dark. They wait. And our mother's final gift was a truth too heavy to carry together that we didn't speak on the drive back into town. Caleb stared out the window, fingers tapping the steering wheel to a rhythm only he could hear. I sat in the passenger seat, clutching the sealed confession like it might burst into flames again if I let go. The silence between us was heavier than the truth we now carried. Or maybe it was the truth that made the silence so suffocating. We stopped at a diner. Neutral ground. Neither of us had stepped inside it since high school, but the cracked vinyl booths and the smell of burnt coffee hadn't changed. We sat in the corner, away from the windows. We need to destroy it, I said again, before someone finds it. Caleb stirred his coffee. No cream. No sugar. Same as Dad used to. And what if someone already did? He asked. I looked up. What's that supposed to mean? He leaned back, slid a small folded slip of paper across the table. It was a photo, a copy of the one we'd seen in the safe. Only this one had a handwritten note on the back. Not everything stays buried, boys. No name. No return address. Just mailed to his apartment a week before Mom died. You got this and said nothing? I snapped. I didn't know what it meant, Caleb replied. Not until today. You should have told me. Like you would have believed me, he shot back. You still don't. You never did. He wasn't wrong. When we were kids, I always thought Caleb lied just for the thrill of it. When he said things like, Dad drinks too much, or Mom cries in the laundry room, I'd roll my eyes. I was the golden boy, the obedient one, the one who didn't ask too many questions. That night after dinner, we returned to the house. The air felt different. The back door was open. I was sure we'd locked it. Inside, nothing looked disturbed until we reached the basement. The safe was gone. Just gone. I stared at the dirt-lined hollow in the floor, my stomach folding in on itself. Caleb was already checking the corners. There's no sign of forced entry, he said, which means whoever took it knew where it was. That doesn't make sense, doesn't it? He turned slowly toward me. Who else knew about the basement? Who else knew about Dad? Who else would want this all to disappear before it made headlines? I didn't say it, but we both thought it. The sheriff. Sheriff Landry had been our neighbor for 20 years. Best friends with our father since they were teenagers. He was the first on the scene the night of the fire. He was the one who declared it an accident without a full investigation. He retired last year. But I remembered what Mom said once when she was deep in a bottle of red. The sheriff knew. He always knew. And he let it burn. We left the house in silence again. But this time, it was different. Not avoidance, planning. The kind of silence that precedes a storm. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked the halls of the house, creaking floors beneath bare feet, staring at the photos on the wall that hadn't aged. Caleb had fallen asleep on the couch with a blanket half draped across his legs. Same as when we were kids. Same as the night of the fire. I opened Mom's closet. Still smelled like lilac. Still had her old boots. I found a lockbox tucked behind a shoebox full of recipes. Inside were letters. Receipts. One from Sheriff Landry, a bank transfer dated 3 months after Dad died. A large one. And a note. For your silence. Our burden. I felt sick. I called Caleb to the room. He stared at the letter and didn't say a word. She blackmailed him, I said. She knew the truth, and she made him pay to bury it. No, Caleb said. That's not blackmail. That's hush money. He didn't pay because she asked. He paid because he owed her. I nodded slowly. So what now? Caleb looked me in the eye. Now we dig up everything. Every file. Every lie. And we show the town who they were mourning all these years. Even if it means exposing Mom. Especially then. Because whatever she did, whatever she covered, she did it for us. And for the first time in 24 years, we were finally ready to face the fire together. The next morning, we went to the courthouse. Not to ask permission, just to see what had been hidden in plain sight. The fire that killed our father happened 24 years ago, in the summer of 1999. No formal investigation had been opened. No autopsy was ever filed. Cause of death, smoke inhalation. Origin, electrical fire. But what Caleb and I found in the records office told a different story. The fire report had been stamped with an override code, one that bypassed the usual inspection chain. And the name at the bottom wasn't a fire marshal. It was Sheriff Thomas Landry. We took a copy. The clerk didn't even blink. No one questioned why 2 sons of a dead man were suddenly digging up decades-old case files. This town was built on knowing when not to ask. He covered it himself, Caleb said on the way out. Didn't even bother hiding it. Because he never thought anyone would look. Because he thought we'd stay quiet. Like she did. We drove to Landry's ranch. He'd retired 2 years ago, built a new home off a gravel road just past the county line. When we pulled up, he was on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the trees like he was waiting for the past to finally catch up. Boys, he said. Didn't expect to see both of you. We're not boys anymore, I said. No, he replied, eyes narrowing. You're not. He invited us to sit like nothing was wrong. But when we handed him the photo, the same one that had been sent to Caleb, the one Mom kept buried in the safe, he didn't blink. Just took a long sip and said, So she told you. Why did you cover it up? I asked. Because your mother asked me to, he said. Because what your father did was worse than what the fire covered. What do you mean? Caleb asked. You already know, the sheriff said. You were there. Caleb looked away. You saw it, didn't you? I asked. What he did to her. To Caleb. The old man nodded. She told me. Swore she'd never go to court. Never drag it out. Said she just wanted him gone. So you helped her? No, he said quietly. I helped you. That broke something in me. I stood up. You think you were a hero? You buried the truth. You let us believe it was just a tragedy. You think the truth would have helped you sleep at night? He asked. Would have helped the town sleep? You were boys. You needed closure, not chaos. And Caleb, I said. He needed silence? He needed space, Landry said. Which is what your mother gave him by taking the blame. She begged me to protect you both. So I did. By sending her hush money? Caleb snapped. That wasn't protection. That was payment. That was guilt. Maybe, the sheriff said. But I never cashed a check she didn't ask for. I couldn't look at him anymore. We left without another word. Caleb didn't speak until we were halfway down the road. He knew. All along. Yeah, I said. And so did she. We drove back to the house and lit a fire in the backyard pit. We burned the copies. Not the originals. Those were in a safety deposit box now. We weren't done with the truth. But we needed to cleanse something. Maybe our own guilt. Maybe our silence. As the flames ate the edges of the past, Caleb finally said what I'd been dreading. I think I started it, Andy. I turned. What? That night? I remember holding the lighter. I remember the smell of bourbon. The fight. Him on top of me. Mom screaming. And then, he paused. Then fire. I didn't speak. Because part of me had always known. The way Mom protected him. The way the sheriff made it disappear. You were a kid, I said. You did what you had to do. I didn't stop it, he said. I let it burn. So did she, I said. And maybe that's the only justice he ever got. But it wasn't enough. Because justice wasn't for the dead. It was for the living. And someone else in this town had sent that photo. Someone else knew. And they weren't finished with us yet. 3 days after we burned the copies, a letter showed up. No return address. No handwriting. Just a plain white envelope, left in our mother's old mailbox with the red flag raised. Caleb found it and handed it to me at the kitchen table. It was already open. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Typed. No name at the bottom. You're not the only ones with a memory. She made you forget. I remember everything. And I still have the photos. I read it twice. Caleb stared at me. Photos, he asked. She kept old things in the attic, I said. Boxes. Albums. Stuff we were never allowed to touch. She said the attic was off limits, he added. Exactly. We went up after lunch. The house was quiet. Each step up the attic stairs creaked louder than I remembered. The air was heavy with dust and something older. We found 3 trunks. One had photo albums. Another had old receipts and holiday decorations. The third trunk, locked with a simple latch, held something else entirely. Inside were papers. Legal ones. And names. Our names. One folder had mine on it, Andrew Mercer. But under the heading it said Legal Guardian of Caleb Mercer. Dated August 1999. 4 days after the fire. What is this? I asked, handing the paper to Caleb. It's signed, he said. By Mom. Not you. She had prepared guardianship documents, making me legally responsible for him. I never knew. It was never filed officially. But it was real. She must have thought she wasn't going to survive that night, I said. She was preparing for the worst. Caleb stayed quiet. Then he found another envelope. A name was printed on it, Hannah Fielding. I didn't recognize it. Inside were letters. One had a photo paperclip to the front. A woman in her early 20s, black and white image, standing in front of a brick building. She had Caleb's eyes, his cheekbones, his smile. There was writing on the back. Your real mother never stopped asking. I just stopped answering. I looked at Caleb. He wasn't breathing. Then we found the birth certificate. It wasn't a copy. It was the original. Yellowed slightly at the edges, but clean. Name, Caleb Fielding. Date of birth, May 16, 1985. Mother, Hannah Fielding. Father, unknown. Adopted by Charles and Mary Ann Mercer, July 1990. Everything slowed down. You're not my brother, I said quietly. He didn't flinch. Just stared forward. She adopted me, he said. And never told me. I didn't know either. That's why he hated me, Caleb whispered. Why she always stood between us. I wasn't his son. I nodded slowly. And she carried that secret all the way to her grave. We sat in silence for a long time. Then I remembered the typed letter. She made you forget. I remember everything. Caleb turned toward me. She's still out there, he said. Hannah. She's the one sending these letters. She wants you to remember where you came from. He stood up. The photo's still in his hand. Then it's time we find her and ask why she gave me up in the first place. I nodded. I didn't have answers. But I knew this. The fire wasn't the end of our story. It was just the beginning. It took us less than a day to find her. Hannah Fielding. She lived 2 towns over in a quiet one-story house with white shutters and a cracked walkway, the kind of place that looked like time forgot it. Caleb knocked twice, his hand steady, but his eyes saying something else. She opened the door slowly, gray-haired, older, but her face, his face, hadn't changed. She looked at him first, then me, and then back again before saying, I was wondering when you'd come. Her voice didn't shake. She wasn't surprised. She let us in without asking why. The living room was warm and smelled faintly of lavender. No family photos. Just a small fireplace, 2 chairs, and a stack of magazines that hadn't been touched. We sat down, all 3 of us, and for a long time, no one said anything. Then Caleb asked, Why did you give me away? She didn't flinch. She looked out the window, her voice soft and clear. I didn't. Not by choice. She told us everything. That she was 17 when she had him. No job, no family, no place to go. She got sick, ended up in the hospital, and that's when the state stepped in. They said they found a couple willing to take him in for a while. Mary Ann and Charles Mercer. Our parents. But it wasn't temporary. Not for long. According to her, she tried to stay in contact. Wrote letters. Made calls. But one day, they all just stopped coming back. She said our father made sure of it. He had money, connections, and a bitter streak. He told her if she kept pushing, she'd never see Caleb again. She said she didn't believe him until it was too late. Caleb sat in silence, gripping the arms of his chair like they were holding him in place. Why didn't you fight? He asked. I did, she said. But by the time I found a lawyer, they'd already filed for adoption. Said you'd been abandoned. That I disappeared. And now? He asked. Why now? She looked right at him. Because your mother is gone. And I didn't want the truth to die with her. Not anymore. Caleb didn't speak for a long time. Then he stood, walked slowly to the mantel, and looked at the quiet photos of landscapes and sunsets and strangers. He didn't cry. He just breathed. Deep and even. I stood too. What do you want from us? I asked. Hannah shook her head. Nothing. You don't owe me anything. I just needed you to know. Outside, the sun was setting behind the trees, casting long shadows across the yard. When we left, Caleb didn't say goodbye. He just looked at her one more time and nodded, almost like a thank you, but smaller. That night, back at the house, we didn't talk much. We sat on the porch, 2 brothers in silence, staring into the dark. The fire, the lies, the secrets, they were all part of a story we didn't choose to inherit, but we were the only ones left to carry it. And maybe that's what family really is. Not the blood, or the name, or the paperwork. Just the ones who stay, even after everything burns.